Hello, and welcome to the 15th episode of the 10th Divine Podcast. This is a show about Elder Scrolls Online, and I'm your host, Shanty, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Raven. How are you doing this week?
Well, I still don't own any property. Woo! Pretty
I do not like the repetition of this song and dance.
No, I'm pretty certain that this is going to be the week at which it all falls apart. Like, we have 3 more working days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, to get what's outstanding done, and it's not possible to do it if it doesn't happen by Wednesday. So I'm pretty certain that this is the week it all just collapses after 7 months of this particular property. There was an additional 2 months on top of that for a different property that I couldn't end up buying for various reasons. So 9 months of my life probably about to collapse into you've just spent £3,000 and you still don't own any property and you're still living in London. That's probably where we'll be on Thursday morning. So yay, looking forward to that. How are you doing?
Well, it's been an up and down week for me. A couple of friends gifted me Dragonflight on Monday.
Woo!
So that was a nice surprise. And then I played a little bit on Tuesday following the NA maintenance and promptly got sick for 3 days and haven't had much time to play since then. Also, my blog posts for the bonus roll website have gone. The first one has gone live. I'll be doing a series from casual to swashbuckler supreme.
Hey, awesome! That's really good that those have got started now.
Yes, that's been a couple months in the making. I'm so happy to finally have the first one out in the wild, so to speak.
Yeah, good work.
But as ever, we are not on our own. We are very excited for the first guest to ever elude us on the first attempt. Welcome, Arkhaniir. How are you doing this week?
Hello. I'm doing good. Busy as usual, and happy to be here finally. After trying it to schedule but failing completely. So yeah, this worked out. How are you?
Good to have you here. Definitely good to have you here. Finally.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Excited to talk the stuff that we're going to be talking about. Although, might not go according to plans because, I'm here and I tend to bring the dumpster fires wherever I go. So we will see how this one goes.
I got enough dumpster fire at the moment, thanks. But,
that whole thing sounds really rough.
Quota. Yeah. We're good.
Well, we are almost at the end, so...
Yeah, 2023 had better be better than 2022. That's all I'm saying.
So, Raven, I know that you've been pretty busy with the launch of Dragonflight. Have you managed to carve out some time for Elder Scrolls Online?
To be honest, no, I haven't. I've been keeping up with my crafting writs, and I've had a couple of master writs for alchemy drop this week, which are good because I can do those ones. I can't do the master writs for other types. I've got a stack of woodworking ones, and I can't do any of them because I don't have any of I haven't learned any of the right bits yet. But the alchemy ones I like because I can do them. So I've done some of those this week, and then just keeping my writs ticked over. But that's basically been it. It's been so Dragonflight obviously is launched in WoW, so there's been quite a lot of WoW in gaming this week. But to be honest, I'm just this house situation. I am just completely exhausted. So I've only really been doing WoW stuff when I've been streaming. And like last night, I was like, I've got a whole evening. I could do some ESO. I could finish off some stuff in Dragonflight. And I sat in front of a YouTube video and then I went to bed at 9 p.m. So this is, I'm not, the house situation is extremely stressful and it's eating my brain, quite frankly. So I've got 1 more week at work before Christmas, and then hopefully I will have some gaming time, since it doesn't look like I'm going to be moving house imminently, which is a problem. How about yourself? Any gaming whilst you've been sick, or?
Well, prior to getting sick, I had been starting to do daily dungeons in ESO, on top of the, collecting login rewards and doing my writs. See, is there anything of note? I got my provisioning to 50 finally. Just took a whole bunch of recipes and
Hey.
took a stack of mats and went, let's just get this done.
Nice.
I
crafting
also
grind that never ends.
I probably need to start some fresh researches now that I think about it. Thank you for the reminder of that grind arc. But I also did dip my toe into Dragonflight a little bit. Not very far, but I am enjoying the Dragon Isles. And how about you, Ark? What have you been up to lately, if anything at all?
In terms of Elder Scrolls Online, nothing. I don't remember when, but at some point I stopped playing. Well, I think it was around update 35 because our let's throw ourselves to dungeons until we cry team disbanded with update 35. And I don't think I really logged in since then, other than to just run around a bit. And on top of that, I didn't really have time to game at all. So mostly what I've been doing in terms of gaming has been just raiding in Destiny 2 with some game industry folks. And that's once a week type thing. So yeah, not much gaming on my end, unfortunately.
Times.
It's going around, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hope 2023 has more gaming in it for all of us.
Yes.
Amen to that.
Yes, please. Yeah. And is Dragonflight the new World of Warcraft expansion? Because I'm really not up to date on anything World of Warcraft. Okay.
Yeah, so the previous expansion was called Shadowlands, and it launched 2 years ago, just at the end of 2020. And it's fair to say it wasn't especially well received. And then from not being especially well received, it then just wasn't very good. It was slightly difficult going to the lands of death in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, that's kind of an obviously Blizzard couldn't have foreseen that one in any way, but it was a bit oh, this feels a bit awkward. And then there was lots of issues with the kind of end game content. So 2 years later,
and on top of that, there was also all the out of game stuff.
Yeah, and then obviously Blizzard shot themselves repeatedly in the foot. So lots of things that it was good to know about came to light, but then they just can't stop tying their own shoelaces together. It's hilarious and terrifying all at the same time. But then, 2 years later, we're back on Azeroth now. We're not in the lands of death anymore. We're back on Azeroth. The dragons have awoken. The Dragon Isles have come back from their slumber for 10,000 years, and now we can do dragon riding. So one of the first things that happens in one of the is that they give you a dragon, and you can do dragon riding with your dragon, which is exciting.
So
there's lots of other things as well.
I remember seeing the flying mounts in World of Warcraft, but are the dragons actually full-size beasts that they are, the ones that you can ride?
Yeah, they're pretty sizable. So I mean, there's been flying in World of Warcraft for a very, very long time now. Flying was originally introduced in Wrath of the Lich King, which would have been 2000
BC. It was Burning Crusade.
Oh my god!
Because it was only available in Outland.
Oh, okay. So that would have been 2006, 2007. A long time ago.
It's pretty much the early days of World of Warcraft.
Yeah. So the dragons do a slightly different type of flying. You can swoop on them a lot and whoosh, and they do a twisty thing. The twisty thing is quite fun. Quite enjoyed getting my twisty thing button this week. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so far the only complaint I've seen about the new flying style is you can't really AFK with it.
No, you run out of a thing called vigor quite quickly. So if you're not careful, you'll be going along with your dragon, and then your vigor will run out, and your dragon will just whoof. Okay. You're like, oh, okay, I seem to be landing now. Yes, the dragons are I'm very tired. I need to stand here for a minute. just need to stand here whilst my little vigor bars fill up again. And then you can go on your way again. But there is quite a lot of like, oh no, I've run out of vigor and fallen out the sky. Oops.
Does it kill you when you fall off?
No, happily not. Or else,
okay.
Falling off things to my death is something that I am extremely well known for. In fact, my stream this week has been full of me falling off things. I jumped off the top of a really high building on a yak this week. So there's a yak that's got a trader on it. So it's got a transmogrifier and it's got a trader. So you quite often pull your yak up if you've just come out of a dungeon or whatever. So you want to sell all your shit into the trader. And I forgot that that's not a dragon. It's a yak. And I literally jumped off the top of like an 8-story building.
Okay, so before we dive into the interview, I do feel I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, have you run into any dragons in Dragonflight yet?
Dragons? Have I run into any dragons? Yes, there's been lots of dragons. Lots of dragons all the way down. And primalists and all sorts.
But you haven't like just walked up and crashed into one, right?
Not like I walk into the ones in Elsewhere. No, I haven't crashed. Most of the dragons I've seen, in Dragonflight are friendly to me. So they've mostly been like Alexstrasza or Rathion. So yes, I haven't done an Elsewhere style like, oh shit, that seems to be a dragon and now I'm dead. No, I haven't. Yeah, that hasn't been my experience thus far.
Okay, so let's go ahead.
There's plenty of time. The expansion's only just launched. Plenty of time for me to upset a dragon. Walking into it.
So let's go ahead and dive into the interview. So Ark, how did you discover the Elder Scrolls in general and ESO in particular?
So ESO I was aware of because I was already playing Elder Scrolls. So when they announced like an MMO version of Elder Scrolls, I was immediately there from the beginning, the beta tests and everything. I was just waiting for it. The Elder Scrolls itself was in 2006 with Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And up until that point, I was just playing, the OG Counter-Strike, the OG Call of Duties, just a little bit of Age of Empires in there, but I had no concept of RPGs. And one day, so we had just one PC at home, so it was either me playing or my older brother playing, and I would be like sitting next to him watching him. And one day he was playing Oblivion, and he was at the very beginning. He was in the sewers of Oblivion trying to get out. So I just sat next to him and I was just watching him play. And for quite a bit, it was just boring to watch because of the whole like an hour long, the sewer experience. And then the moment I guess it clicked for me was when you exit the sewers for the first time in Oblivion and you are welcomed by that gorgeous first island that you see with the mountains and forest behind it and anything like that. And up until that point, because I didn't really play RPGs, I had no concept of like, a gorgeous game. It was all just action and stuff like that, or top-down stuff. So I guess just seeing that was like, oh dang, there are some amazing stuff out there that I have no idea about. And I think that was the moment that caught me in Elder Scrolls, and I never stopped since then. I played Oblivion for several years. My longest playthrough being about 2 years as a pure mage, and then ending in that same island that we actually see the first time we begin, because there are ruins inside that island that you very easily find. But for 2 years later, I found that you go through a secret like door or something, and it actually expands massively under that first small island. It just is a massive ruin, like A-Lade ruin complex. And I started exploring it with not saving at all for a very long time. And I got hit by this one very specific zombie that stopped my mana regeneration, and you can't get rid of it unless you have cure disease potions. And as a pure mage, I just couldn't get out of the ruin, and that was that. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I'm done with Oblivion after all these years because of a zombie hit.
Wow.
And then after that, obviously, I moved on to Skyrim, then Elder Scrolls Online, then got convinced to playing Morrowind. I was only able to do so for about 50, 60 hours before I gave up. But yeah, that's how I got into it, basically, because of that first scene in Oblivion after exiting the sewers.
That's a good story. I mean, 50 to 60 hours is quite a long time to spend in Morrowind, to be fair.
I would have continued, but I don't know what I did wrong. I just started being massively underleveled to every quest I went. Everything would just smack me to the ground, and I eventually went, I'm not gonna grind to play Morrowind. I don't want to do that. But I would have continued if I managed to play. But I don't know. Something happened. I passed the threshold and just started getting destroyed by everything. And that was it. I was like, yeah, I guess this is enough of Morrowind experience for now. Maybe one day.
Seems fair. Are you a single character player, or do you have a bunch of alts ready to go?
Single character. I mean, I did level over the course of like 8 years. I think I leveled only 3 more characters to level 50. 2 of them don't have their skills leveled up, so only one of them is 2 of them is combat ready. The other one was for like role playing reasons. But yeah, I played on North American Mega Server with only 1 character plus 1 other character for like role playing, and the only reason I leveled him up was because back then we couldn't wear whatever armor we wanted, and the costume I wanted required me to be level 50 and in veteran ranks, so that's the only reason I leveled him up. And then on EU I have my main classic Nord DK, a Nord Necromancer, and a Nord Warden. Necromancer I only played because, leveled because I wanted to see how tanking with that class would be. Didn't really enjoy it, so I only played it for a little while. And then Warden was my PvP tank, so yeah. But the playtime of all of my alts combined would probably like 5% of my total playtime.
Fair.
So yeah, single character, definitely.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I am clearly on the opposite end of that single player spectrum.
I mean, how do you do everything over? If it wasn't for skill points, I think I would have been able to play alts, because the grinding part goes fast, especially if you have access to scrolls and experience potions. But you have to do so many quests and everything again for those skill points, and that's I just can't. No.
So, sometimes you just want to zone out, and that repeated muscle memory of doing these quests, it's...
I guess. My concept of zoning out in ESO has always been just going to a random city, generally where the current main hub is, and just jumping around, literally not achieving anything, and jumping on a ledge, jumping down, jumping on a ledge, jumping down, jumping on a box, jumping down. And I sometimes would spend 2 hours doing this while watching Netflix or just chatting with people. So that was my completely unproductive way of spending time in ESO.
Parkour.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Fantastic.
So, what was your start in content creation?
Oh, okay. So, back when I first started university, back in 2012, I think, I also was really interested in game journalism. So I would write on my own website, under my own domain name. I was sort of working every now and then with some of the video game journals in Turkey, writing bits and pieces. Whether if they got somewhere or not didn't really matter. I was just happy to, do that. And then when I started playing Elder Scrolls Online, I was also introduced to Tales of Tamriel as a listener. I was a huge fan of Deltia's website, deltiasgaming.com, with his guides and everything like that, and some other news websites. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try starting an ESO specific website as well. And I think, because I was really unclear on the name back then, but I think I went with Gamers Compendium, because I still love that name, Compendium. I squeeze it everywhere I go. And I started writing like news or tips and tricks and stuff like that for Elder Scrolls Online. It was basically just what we talk on the podcast in a way, just in written format, because I had no concept of like making YouTube videos or anything like that. So it started with that. And then in episode 25 of Tales of Tamriel, Egelos invited me on the show to sort of like highlight or spotlight the website, being the awesome dude that he is. So I got introduced to, the podcasting format as well. Except if you listen to that episode, every time I listen back to it, I just feel pain, because I've always been good with English in written format and listening and stuff like that, but I didn't really have any chance to or reason to practice actually speaking it. So if you go back to that episode 25, you'll watch my struggle of like trying to put sentences together and taking 5 minutes to just convey one simple thought. And my microphone is a mess. It's a combination of just, okay, this guy definitely does not do any content creation right now. But that was how I got into, like, first with the website and then as a guest on Tales. And then I met Ophelia's, who is currently a Bethesda UK community manager, Ophelia's Twitch stream, because the title had lore stream and lore quiz. And I was like, oh, lore, let's go. And up until then, I wasn't really watching any streamers whatsoever. It just wasn't appealing to me. I guess that may have been because I would always just see these massive numbered big streamers, which you can't interact in any way, really. And then her community was absolutely fantastic, welcoming. The chat was active. We were hanging out, having fun. And then at some point, I went, you know what? I kind of want to try doing the streaming thing as well. And then got into it that way. And Ophelia was a huge support with setting everything up and like helping me out. Her community also, helped support the streams and stuff like that. So that's how I got into the streaming as well. So it's like in this 3-part with completely different mediums.
Yeah. I think, I don't think anybody likes hearing the first time they were ever on a podcast. Like, God, when I think back to the very, very early episodes of Girls Gone WoW, you're like, oh, no, that was terrible. But I have a huge amount of respect for anybody who can talk about anything as kind of complex and nuanced as video games in a language that's not their usual language. Like, so I think you should cut yourself some slack for that. English is a complicated language to start with.
Well, I appreciate that, yeah.
Video gaming has all of this like additional language that you don't use for anything else. So yeah, that seems like a hardcore thing.
Yeah, English is 3 languages in a trench coat to begin with, and then you add gaming terms.
Yeah, pretty much.
And obviously we could not do it I couldn't do anything in French or German, never mind Turkish. So
it came with like, I guess, years of gaming too. That's when people ask, like, oh, how did you learn English? I did see it in school and whatnot too, but it was just gaming, because years from childhood struggling, and I was always playing multiplayer games as well, pretty much. And it was just struggling to interact with people. So I would play most games with like an Oxford dictionary to the side, because that back then, just quickly Googling it wasn't really an option either. So I would just have a dictionary, and just to like interact with people, whether if it was a shooter, whether if it was another MMO, just like, how do I craft this? The question of like, how do I do this I would have to just open up the dictionary. Like, okay, what is crafting? And in Turkish, of course. And I was like, okay, so craft, okay. And then the sentences would be like, I will going to be go or something like weird grammar and stuff like that. But eventually, just being exposed to it over the course of 2 decades of gaming, here we are, thankfully. So
Yeah, it's very impressive. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a bit about the history of Tales of Tamriel since you've become part of that crew?
Are we going from the first appearance or like when I officially joined? Because there's 100 episode difference between the two.
You can talk about whichever bits you want to talk about. This is the floor is yours.
I seem to recall there was actually a write-in from you about Guars.
Yeah, that was, I think, between episode 25. I think that was either before or after episode 25. It was very early days. And everyone was talking about, on the show, everyone was talking about how cute Guars are. And then I looked at Guars in multiple games, and what I saw was a horrendous creature. And then from then on, I realized there is no way this is a natural occurrence that this many people in Tamriel believe genuinely that these creatures are as cute as everybody claims they are, and harmless as they are. So that's how I came to realize that Guars probably possess one of the most potent magic on Tamriel, and are basically casting a continent-wide charm on everybody, and are probably plotting to take over at some point, because that only makes sense. And I prepared this image that is called The Anatomy of Guar by Arkhaniir, where it clearly shows very scientifically that Guars are a lab experiment gone wrong, and they are a fusion of lizards, chickens, some harpies, and snakes, and things like that. Very scientific, totally accurate. And yeah, they brought that on the show, and that's been a thing ever since. I've been fighting the good fight, and some agents of the cult of Guar have been trying to undermine my valiant efforts to save Tamriel from itself. But yeah, that's the history of the Guar part. As for the show, well, Tales is kind of famous with its constant shift in hosts. We are, I think, like the Lotus and I currently, I think we are the 6th set of completely new hosts for Tales. Agelos obviously has been there from the start. Daltia was there for a very long time. I think he joined very early on, like episode 10s, and then he was there up until 70s, 80s, if I remember correctly. And then we had Asteldian for a long time. We had Avi Optimal for a long time. There were many guest hosts in between. And I guested on episode 25, and then I went back to being a listener for like a 90 episode-ish. And then at some point, Agilis just went, do you want to just come back on the show as a guest? And I think that was because I started streaming by then. I don't remember correctly. So he was just like, let's spotlight that as well. And then he tricked me into being a permanent co-host at around like episode 105 or something like that. And back then it was me, Avi, and Agilos. And then Avi had to step away because his recording situation sort of became like difficult with the noise and everything, with the setup. And then for a while, it was Agilos and I with the occasional guests doing it. And then we brought in Lotus, I think, to talk about Extra Life. And then we tricked Lotus into being a permanent co-host as well. And then Agilos started slowly sort of like, hey, I'm busy this day today. Can you just host the show and then I'll edit it and publish it later? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then he started doing it more often. And then he was like, can you I'm going to show you how to publish it. Like, I'll edit it and everything, but you'll publish it. And I was like, I'm going to show you how to edit it. And then next thing I know, he's like, well, his life got very busy and everything. And I was like, do you want to host the show? I mean, you already do everything. I was like, okay. And that's how I ended up sort of being tricked into hosting Tales. And then around that time, we brought in Promethean as well. So it was then Lotus, myself, and Promethean. And that went on for quite a long time. And then I started showing Lotus how to host as well. Save my Ag did it to me, because whenever I wasn't there, I was like, well, you can still host the show. I'll do the editing and everything like that. So I got Lotus to host some of the shows because I wasn't there and we didn't want to skip an episode. And then we brought in Pixie, which was absolutely, honestly, one of the best decisions, except she turned out to be Aldmeri Dominion. And that happened. Basically, I was just scrolling through the directory of ESO streams. I saw Pixie. I joined, and she was playing a Breton. She wasn't on her Altmer main. She was on her Breton, because back then apparently for healing Bretons was the top class or top race, and I assumed she was Daggerfall Covenant. So I invited her on the show. And then first episode, she's like, oh no, I'm not Daggerfall Covenant, I'm Aldmeri Dominion. I was like, invaded? What is happening here? But it's honestly, everything clicked between Promethean, Lotus, myself, and Pixie. So we were like, okay, we're all permanent here for the moment. And we brought Pixie back. We kept bringing Promethean back. And then Promethean started focusing on his studies. So he dropped off the show. And Pixie eventually, with a lot of people moving away from ESO to try different, like World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, Pixie also sort of started moving towards those, and she like got a new house and everything, so life was very chaotic. They also got married with Braun, so life was extra chaotic in a beautiful way. So she dropped off the show as well, and now it's Lotus and myself. Still haven't shown Lotus how to edit the show, but that's in the plans, you know. Gonna trick him the same way. But yeah, for the moment, it's Lotus, myself. Obviously, Dr. Who Dat was also part of it, but she also had to drop off because of the chaos in life. So yeah, for now, it's just Lotus and I with the guests that we get on the show. We'll see where it goes from there. And between me joining and the show first starting, there were also that many like host differences as well. So I guess, yeah, in total about 15, 20 different people, I think, hosted or co-hosted Tales as a whole. That's why we say it's like, this is now a community show. And if we stop one day for whatever reason, we're just going to get the next set of people and have them keep it going. And see, you know, how long into the future Tales endures, how many Elder Scrolls titles we get to see.
Okay, so what I'm hearing there is that we need to be careful having Ben guests, or we may end up as hosts in the future.
It's always a risk. Yeah. It's always a risk, yeah.
I think it's kind of amazing that Tales is this. It's like it's its own entity. I don't think I know of any other podcast where like the podcast itself is like the entity and the hosts just like come and go. It's like this kind of deep demonic energy in there that's trapping people as they come through the door.
I don't know if it's demonic, but it's definitely off the rails and full of dumpster fires. But it works somehow. So.
Yeah, it's good. We enjoy it a lot. And we very much
I appreciate that.
We very much enjoyed that.
I mean, we'll just bring you back on. It's fine. And then again, and then again, and then
the next thing you know, all of a sudden we're hosts.
Yeah. I mean, you already know how to edit and publish, so that skips some steps.
Well, that would specifically be Raven on that front. But she already has 2 shows, so...
I do, yes.
And this is the part of the show where we remind you that we are part of Bonus Roll Productions. You can find our show and lots of other great MMO-focused podcasts, such as Technically PvP, But Wait There's Lore, and A Podcast Reborn over at bonusroll.gg. So, on the subject of Tales, this year... you joined the Robots Radio Network and partnered with UESP. How long did that take to sort all of that out? Because that sounds like a monumental undertaking with 2 big announcements over 2 weeks back when you revealed them.
Yeah, it actually happened pretty fast. As with everything we do, there weren't too much planning that went into it. So UESP, there was obviously the UESP podcast ran by Pylon, and they were over 100 episodes, and they were the official podcast of the Unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, UESP. And we were doing a whole bunch of collaborations between the two of us already. We were doing crossover episodes where it was like 7 hosts, 5 hours stuff. Wow. And people were really enjoying that. So we were already like very close as podcasts and in terms of the style that we do as well. And then Pylon, again, with life, had to step away from doing USB podcast. And around that time, we had the idea of, or like Pylon as well, had the idea of like, okay, what if Tales became the official podcast of UESP instead of USB podcast, which now cannot continue? And also around that time, so Tales of Tamriel started as a solo entity, and then as Agelos started doing more podcasts, he turned everything into the Dungeon Crawler Network, under which there was the Saga of Lucimia's podcast, Ashes of Creation podcast, the generic MMO podcast, the Dungeon Crawlers, some other stuff. And then I added the New Worlds Compendium, which lasted like 10 episodes, and then the game turned out bad. And then, of course, Tales of Tamriel. But over time, everything but Tales pod faded. They went down. So Dungeon Crawler Network as a brand ended up being just Tales of Tamriel again. And I thought about adding more shows to it, but having barely time to do Tales, that ended up being a goose chase. So I was already thinking like, okay, well, the name Dungeon Crawler Network doesn't make sense anymore because there is no network, there is only Tales. So we were already thinking about making Tales a solo entity anyway. So when the opportunity to partner up with UESP came, I was like, yeah, there's no point of keeping Dungeon Crawler Network when you can be partnered with UESP. And so we did that. And UESP podcast was part of Robots Radio Network. So we talked with Tom, and since UESP podcast wasn't continuing, we thought, okay, well, we are partnering with UESP. UESP podcast was partnered with Robots Radio. And Tom was like, yeah, sure. I mean, we had already discussed making Tales a part of Robots Radio Network in the past, but because Dungeon Crawler Network as a name was a thing, the idea of like Dungeon Crawler Network, part of Robots Radio Network, and then it was just this confusing branding. So we had never done it, but after we got rid of Dungeon Crawler Network as a whole, the opportunity to being partnered with Robots Radio was there as well. So we talked. So it happened like in a very fast way, honestly, within just a matter of weeks. I think announcing it properly took more preparation than actually doing the partnerships.
Oh. In addition to playing games, when you occasionally get time to, you also work in game development. What's that like? And this is why you never get any chance to play any games. Yeah.
Yes. So there are 2 parts to it. So I got into game development because of the games that, make you really, really feel stuff. Whether it's fun, whether if it makes you cry, whatever things like that slams you with emotions. Unfortunately, in Turkish game industry and state, it's very heavily mobile. And so I've been working in mobile games of various like scales for about 6 years now in Turkey. So that part does very much feel like a job and not a, hey, I'm super passionate about this. I am in the moments that I don't have what people call the imposter syndrome. I believe I am really good at it. I'm just not passionate about it, the mobile game development side. However, the plan has always been going indie, making my own game in the style that I want to, with the, to give players the feelings that I get from when playing such games. And I started that endeavor about 7 months ago, I think, in basically last May or something like that. And it's been a slow and difficult journey because of both the industry's heavy crunch culture, which overseas in the West, it has been dying down a bit. People are, raising more awareness towards it. Companies are more accommodating about it. But in mobile games, especially in Turkey, it's still there. So very chaotic hours, very crazy work weeks. And on top of that, making my own game is basically the reason I haven't been able to just play much games. And that's why my content creation side also sort of died out as well, because I didn't really have time to set a schedule. Also why I haven't been able to just plan anything with being a guest here ahead of time, because any plans that I do can just go down the drain immediately because, oh, hey, we are working 16 hours today, and there it goes. So it is my dream, definitely. I am sort of stuck in the mobile side of it in terms of career-wise, which is not fun. But again, it's a job, not supposed to be fun at the end of the day because you're getting paid for it. And I'm making my own game, which will hopefully take me out of the mobile side and set the path for where I want to be in the games industry. But we'll see. That's probably another 2 years of journeying there from my current approximations.
Yeah, that's a serious endeavor. Can you tell us anything about what the genre is? Any what sort of game?
Yeah, so I am working on a roguelite isometric camera. Yeah, sort of like Transistor, Hades in that style, because everything Supergiant Games makes, I'm a huge fan of, especially Transistor, definitely one of my favorite games. And ever since I started making games, I've always been making that top-down isometric roguelite style. So I thought, okay, well, this is where I'm strongest at. So I'm going to just, as my first game, as a solo developer, I'm just going to focus on what I know and what I have experience on. So that's what I'm making on. In terms of what's it about, the setting will definitely have 80s/cyberpunk vibes, because that's the best always. In terms of story and what's it about, I can't say much because I do have some ideas, but executing them would require so much artwork, especially in 3D assets, and I am not good in that department. So we'll see. It might end up not being about anything and just pure gameplay. But if I either find the funds or a 3D artist or find the time to learn it myself, there will be a story that I'm thinking about, but that's just uncertain at the moment.
Cool. Well, good luck with that, because that
sounds
like a fascinating and difficult endeavor.
Yeah.
When this episode goes live, it will be a couple weeks since you and the recently and temporarily rebranded Lotus of Dominion did a massive extra live stream. Can you give our listeners a quick recap of some highlights?
So, in case anyone doesn't know, Extra Life is a charity organization that raises funds through gaming for Children's Miracle Hospital Networks. And Lotus has been doing it. That's how we basically first met with him as well. Lotus has been doing it for, I think this is his 10th year, raising money for Extra Life. And since he became a part of Tales, we also, as with whoever hosts we have in that moment, we try to take part in it as well to make it a longer, weekend-long endeavor. And this past, I think, it was 2 weeks, yeah. So this year, and the concept is there is one game day So you raise money throughout the year if you want, or on specific days if you want. But there is one game day where everyone does like this massive marathon, and everyone collectively raises the money. That usually is in November, but because of Lotus's scheduling, we do it on a separate week, generally just a couple of weeks or so after the official game day. And we try to do, so Lotus does 20 to 24 hours by himself, and then I do, depending on when he starts and when he ends, and our time zone differences, I just try to either before or after take like another 12 to 16 hours. And this year, USB, being a partner of USB, they offered to be a massive help and matching up to 3K in donations, as well as providing us with pretty much all of their Patreon tier, Patreon rewards in merchandise, like the cool physical stuff that they give out. And ZeniMax Online was helpful as well. Gina provided some keys and for like High Isle and Torchbugs. And there was, of course, other people who were involved in as well. It was, at the end, a bigger success than I think we ever achieved before, with a total of over 6,500 raised. And that was just an insane number for us as well. I mean, 3,500 raised by like the people in the community, and then with 3,000 coming in from UESP as well. It was just a massive success. Yeah. For Extra Life. For Lotus, it was painful. I mean, we went at it. Yes. We took the opportunity and we tried to fix everything that is wrong with Lotus and Elder Scrolls, starting with his glass armor. That painful, ugly green glass armor. And we absolutely destroyed it. I'm really proud of the people in the community. $10 at a time. We just made it a mess. It was beautiful. Well, I mean, it looks horrendous, but that's what makes it beautiful.
Listen, Ark started that with the moving him into a ancient Aldmir helm.
Yes, it was painful for me to do. Okay, to put an ancient Aldmeri helmet on anyone, it is a painful thing. But it was more painful for Lotus, so I enjoyed it. And then, yeah, that sort of snowballed into people in chat either fighting to fix Lotus's armor or trying to make it even worse, which is always a good thing for Cherry. Like, when you can get a snowball rolling like that, it's amazing because people have a lot of fun with it, and, you know, it increases the fun. So, and then Auron Doodles, who's also an Elder Scrolls streamer and a huge advocate for Aldmeri Dominion. Unfortunately, we love her, but you know, everyone has their faults. And she was like, "How much to change alliances? And she was like, "Would $100 be good enough?" And she threw it before Lotus could even reply, and we all watched Lotus's soul leave his body live on Twitch as he bought an alliance change token and changed to the Aldmeri Dominion. So now until 2023, he is Lotus of Dominion, a Grand Overlord, a 5-star Grand Overlord for the Aldmeri Dominion, because apparently your alliance rank carries over as well, which is just icing on the cake. So
amazing.
Overall,
the moment on Twitch.
Oh, there are so many clips. He's been working on making them into a YouTube video so people can just watch that. But yeah, we were just clipping left and right, every moment, every tear in his eye as he did all that. But yeah, overall, huge thanks to the community for, you know, coming together for that endeavor every year. And this year has been a massive success. I mean, the previous years were massive success as well, but this year, in terms of just raw numbers, it just went crazy. And hopefully we'll just keep on increasing that number as the year goes, but we'll see.
Yeah, 10K next year, huh?
That would be amazing. Yeah.
And don't
Well,
sell yourself short, Ark. You did something spectacular too.
Oh right, I did the so every year I used to play games, but this year well, I wasn't up to date on ESO. I didn't really have anything I wanted to do in ESO. So I thought, okay, you know what? Let's make a game instead. Because I've been focusing sort of my own streams for game development as well. So I decided to do a game jam of 12 hours as like a solo game jam. And I sat down and made a game, which honestly turned out much more playable than I initially thought of. So the concept of that is, so I wanted it to be sort of extra life themed and cheery rather than, oh, there's combat, you slash people, destroy things. So I did some brainstorming and ended up on the idea that, so you play as this character with wings, which are all like pre-purchased assets from my asset library, and you collect extra life. So you are flying around, which the controls ended up being very much like a plane, but somehow it turned out fine. So you fly around and collect these extra life that are floating around these platforms, which require certain amount of those lives. So the platform completes, the people on the platform become happy and just fly away, and you're on a timer. So basically the idea is you are flying around as a person who flies like a plane, gather extra lives in time before the platform disappears, deposit those lives to the platform, and everybody on it cheers and they fly away, and then new platforms pop up. So you just try to get as many platforms as you can, build up your score before you let 3 platforms disappear. That's the main idea. And honestly, people in chat enjoyed it more than I thought they would. And they were asking, like, can we play this anywhere? So when I find time, I need to sit back on it for like another couple days to make it more playable and have it uploaded somewhere. I don't know where, but hopefully it'll be available somewhere with a link to the extra life. So if anybody plays it, enjoys it, I mean, like, oh yeah, I'll throw in a couple bucks. That's a win. So, but I'll need to find the time for that.
Sounds like an incredible thing to do. Just design a whole game on stream for Extra Life. That sounds so cool.
Yeah, honestly, I hope it catches. Like, maybe, I don't know, maybe one day Extra Life will just go, okay, so we do gaming, maybe we'll do game development as well as an Extra Life community, have our own, like, massively organized game jam, and everybody gets together to make games this time instead of playing games. And I would really enjoy that. I don't know if they would go under that, like, take on that undertaking, but we'll see. Maybe it'll catch up, hopefully.
Oh, well done to both of you, because that's an incredible achievement. That's an incredible achievement. Yeah. So the last of our kind of proper questions, outside of this amazing charity streaming extravaganza, you occasionally do some streaming yourself. What could people find if they were to pop into one of your streams?
Well, right now they would mostly find every now and then game development stuff. So I now do live game development on my Twitch channel. There used to be a lot of gaming. I used to just play games with very rare game development stuff. But since I feel just bad if I don't work on the game, and I feel bad if I don't stream stuff, I try to combine the two. And yeah, because there was a time I tried full-timing the whole Twitch and podcasting as well, and it was really fun, and I really enjoy streaming. But yeah, it's clicking that going live button or go live button is difficult, and I feel like it's going to be hopefully a good compromise on, hey, I am working on the game and streaming, and having constant, like, real-time feedback from chat is really nice as well, because you can bounce off ideas constantly. People can just randomly throw in an idea that you would have never thought by yourself in a million years, and you're like, oh heck yeah, that's a good idea, and then you can just, like, implement stuff like that. So yeah, that would be what they would see on my channel at the moment. Hopefully I'll bring in some game stream, like actual gaming in as well, but first I gotta start playing games. And for that I need something to catch my attention again. But we'll see when that will happen again. It's not happening anytime soon, it looks like.
Okay, so these last few questions are for fun, and I'm expecting some passionate answers here.
We're expecting some pushback here, I think.
So first off,
I'm ready.
What type of guar would make a good house pet?
A bantam guar, because you can feed it to your actual proper house pets.
Okay. That
Like,
was a very definite answer there. I like that. Very certain.
I mean, depending on the size of the house, like actual proper, nice, good, non-evil animal you have in your house, you could go with an actual guar as well. But I would assume most people are not, feeding a dragon-sized thing in their house. So a bantam guar would probably make a good meal for like your dog, your lizard maybe, if you have snake, that cat across several days.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd have to cut it up for the cat for sure. Is there a better design than glass armor?
Anything. What we created horrendously among ourselves as the community is a better design than the just generic glass armor, because at least it makes a statement. The glass armor, especially if you just don't dye it properly, which Lotus doesn't, he just leaves it with that ugly default green, is horrendous. It's just, I hate it. But specifically speaking, if Skin Changer, one of my favorite heavy armor sets in the game, which is what my character has because of the blur, it's not visible right now, but on the thing there, like I forgot the name, painting, there we go, in the back. So Skin Changer, definitely great. Most Nordic armors, absolutely fantastic. I am a huge fan these days of the Ebon Steel heavy plate as well. Other than that, just go with Nordic bath towel costume, and it's better no armor at all than glass armor.
Is there a picture of this amazing creation that you made for Lotus? Does he have it on his somewhere?
He definitely would have, yeah. The clips would definitely be there. I posted one on Twitter as well, but that was just the beginning of it, so it just kept on getting more and more destroyed over the time. At some point, Matagon, I think, ended up giving him like pure bright orange Imperial shoulder pauldrons.
No, somebody else did that in honor of Matagon.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there you go. That makes sense too. So, okay, I did find the one I took early on. Where should I drop this? Is there a chat thing in this?
There is a chat in Discord, and stick it there, and I'll stick it in the yeah. Okay, cool. I'll stick it in the show notes.
So that was the beginning of his destruction.
Okay.
Or rather his costume's destruction, yeah.
Yes, at that point you had destroyed his helm, I had destroyed his legs. Somebody else had previously changed his shoulders prior to the bright orange Matagon shoulders.
Mm. And then the icing on the cake came with the chest piece with the Aldmeri Dominion sigil straight on there. And that was just like the final nail in his wardrobe, I guess.
I don't know. At some point, somebody put him in the go-go dancer pants.
Oh, yeah, that too. It just kept on changing. And not in a good way at all. It just kept on getting worse.
I think the final aesthetic was deemed Power Ranger burlesque dancer.
Okay.
I can see that, yeah.
Strong language right there.
Okay, and finally, other than Lotus joining, why is AD the best faction?
It's not. What kind of a question is that? That's a biased question. I refuse to answer that. Well, there is okay. So if we are sticking with the question being being worded the way it is, as in why is AD the best faction, that is because it gives us something to kill. It's good sport. It gives us a target. It keeps us having fun as the Ebonheart Pact. And yeah, just sort of like think hunting, but instead of hunting, nice, cute animals that are not guars, you hunt Aldmeri Dominion. So if in that sense, it could be considered the best faction in a specific category, yes.
Okay.
You asked it. You asked it.
We did.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
So in terms of the podcast, all the links are sort of neatly packed in talesoftamrielpodcast.com. In terms of my own streams, I am anywhere that is Arkhaniir, which is a made-up name, so it's just me that shows up unless there's an imposter out there. So that is ARKHANIIR. I didn't think it through when I was coming up with the name that it would be really difficult to actually spell just from hearing it, but here we are. It's now an identity. So on Twitter, Gmail, Discord, whatever, everywhere I'm Arkhaniir. And then on Twitch, I am Arkhaniir's Quest. Because I initially had my own channel, twitch.tv/Arkhaniir, and then I took over Dungeon Crawler Network's Twitch channel, which was twitch.tv/Dungeon Crawler Network. And then we closed Dungeon Crawler Network, so I rebranded that as Arkhaniir's Quest, so that's where we are now. But yeah, probably should rebrand that again someday and switch names to just Arkhaniir, but that's also a undertaking, so... and honestly, thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed this. I'm glad we finally were able to do it. And yeah, this was a blast.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Definitely had a lot of laughs today, and we definitely appreciate you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you all too. And I'm sorry if you two are AD. Genuinely sorry, because that's a difficult life. Perhaps you should change.
Well, look out for my extra life incentives for next year.
Yeah,
yes, there you go.
Maybe this whole flat purchase situation. Maybe it's all maybe my love for AD is at the root of all my problems.
I mean, the gods may have cursed, yes, because
maybe that's the problem. Somebody certainly cursed me. Anyway,
thank you
Must have
so
been
much.
The Guar. Sorry.
Had to get one last shot in at the Guar.
yeah, I'm sorry.
I like your style, staying consistent. I approve. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you've enjoyed it, please let other people know and give a review wherever you're listening to us. Rating and reviewing the show will help other people find it. You can also give us a review over at the Bonus Roll podcast directory. Go to bonusroll.gg/directory to find it. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can find us on Twitter at 10th Divine Pod, or you can email us at 10thdivinepodcast@gmail.com.
if you want to find us in other places, you can find me, Raven, over at Girls Gone WoW, if you're a World of Warcraft fan, or if tabletop RPGs are more your thing, check out As the Dice Roll, where I'm part of the crew of the Cautious Optimism. You can also find me on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram as @SilkyRaven, or over at the Girls Gone WoW Discord at girlsgonewow.net/Discord. There's a channel for ESO chatter and lots of other gaming and general chat.
And you can find me, Shanty, on Twitter or Twitch at Shantyman Gaming. I stream ESO on Saturday evenings, and am hoping to expand my schedule after New Year's. You can also find me on the Girls Gone Wild Discord, joining in the ESO chatter and gaming chat, and a whole variety of other gaming Discords. Or if blogs are your thing, you can follow my road from casual to swashbuckler supreme on the Bonus Roll website. We will be back in a fortnight with another lovely chat about ESO. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.